Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive right in and talk about the incredible physics that keep the world's largest moving objects, these massive ships, from just tipping over out in the open ocean.
I mean, just look at this thing. It's basically a floating skyscraper. Some of these ships are as long as 5 football fields. So you gotta ask, right? With all the wind, the waves, and its own unbelievable weight, what is actually stopping it from just capsizing? Okay, so here's how we're gonna tackle this. First, we'll look at the big problem itself. Then, we'll get into the secret sauce, the physics that keep them upright. After that, we'll uncover some hidden dangers you wouldn't expect. Then, we'll see how modern ships face new challenges. And finally, we'll wrap up with the rules of the sea that keep everything in check. All right, first thing you need to get your head around is this. A ship at sea is never just sitting pretty. Nope. It's in a constant fight, a real tug of war with nature. You've got all these powerful forces trying to knock it over from every single direction. And believe me, when that battle is lost, it's a disaster. We're talking about lives on the line, huge environmental catastrophes, and money. I mean, financial losses that can easily hit tens of millions of dollars. The stakes, they just don't get any higher.
So how do they stay upright? How do these massive ships win that fight day in and day out? Well, the secret? It all comes down to this incredible duel between two totally invisible forces.
Okay, force number 1 is the center of gravity. The pros just call it G. Think of it like this. If you could find the one single balance point for the entire ship, the steel, the cargo, the fuel, all of it, that's G. It's the point where all that weight is pushing straight down. And pushing right back up against G, you've got the center of buoyancy, or B. Now this one's a bit different. It's the center point of the part of the ship that's underwater. And that's where all the upward force from the water is concentrated. So when the ship is sitting perfectly level, G and B line up, one on top of the other. Nice and simple. But what happens when a wave hits and the ship starts to heel over? Well, this is where the magic happens. The shape of the hull that's underwater changes, right? So B, the center of buoyancy, actually moves. It shifts to the side. And now you've got this offset between the downward push of gravity and the upward push of the water. This creates this incredibly powerful lever. It's like an invisible hand that literally shoves the ship back upright. Pretty clever, huh? And all of this leads to the absolute golden rule of ship stability. It's all about a third point, a theoretical point called the metacenter, or M. The easiest way to think of M is as the pivot point for the ship's roll. And here's the deal. As long as M is above the center of gravity, G, that invisible hand we talked about, will always push the ship upright. The ship is stable. But, and this is a huge but, if G ever gets higher than M, everything flips. That same force will now actively try to capsize the ship. It is an incredibly fine line, a real knife-edge balance. But here's the catch. You can have the best designed ship in the world, but that critical safety margin, that M over G rule, it can be wiped out just like that by dangers lurking deep inside the ship itself. So let me ask you a question. What do you think is one of the most dangerous things on a perfectly stable ship? You're probably thinking of a giant rogue wave, right? But what if I told you the biggest threat is something that's already on board, something totally ordinary? The answer is a half-empty tank. That's it. A tank of liquid that isn't completely full, what mariners call a slack tank. Could be fuel, could be water, doesn't matter. So why is that so dangerous? It's because of something called the free surface effect. See, as the ship rolls, all that liquid sloshes from side to side, and all that moving weight has the exact same effect as raising the ship's center of gravity, G. It effectively makes the ship more top-heavy, and that eats away at its stability, making it way harder to right itself. And this is such a great example of the clever engineering involved. The fix is actually pretty simple. You put walls or bulkheads inside the tank. This breaks up that big free surface into a bunch of smaller ones. The liquid can't slosh around nearly as much, which basically cancels out the free surface effect and keeps the ship stable. A really elegant solution to a massive problem. Okay, so we've talked about what's going on inside the ship, but that's not the whole story. As ships have gotten bigger and faster, the water itself has started to play some really weird tricks on them. One of the strangest of these is called ship squat.
It sounds weird, I know, but when a big ship is moving fast in shallow water, the water has to speed up to get underneath the hull. Basic physics says this creates a low-pressure area, and that low pressure literally sucks the entire ship downwards, closer to the seabed. And this is no small thing. This isn't just theory. Back in 1992, the famous QE2 passenger liner ran aground. And why? Because the crew didn't fully account for ship squat. That little miscalculation led to a reported $13 million repair bill, not to mention all the money lost while she was out of service. Ouch. Another one of these invisible forces is interaction. Basically, the pressure zones that form around ships moving in the water can act like magnets. They can pull two ships together with incredible force, or even shove a ship's stern sideways right into a riverbank. For any pilot trying to navigate a narrow channel, this is something they are thinking about constantly.
Okay, so you've got gravity, buoyancy, sloshing liquids, weird suction effects. It's a lot to deal with. So how in the world do they manage all this and keep things safe? Well, it all boils down to two things: strict rules and extremely careful planning. I'm sure you've seen these markings on the side of a ship before. That's called the Plimsoll line, and it's a genius, low-tech solution for the #1 rule of the sea: don't overload the boat. Each little line tells the crew the deepest the ship can safely sit in the water, depending on where they are in the world and what season it is, from warm freshwater rivers to the icy North Atlantic in winter. And all of this information feeds into what is basically the ship's Bible, the Trim and Stability Book. This is a massive manual from the shipbuilder with every chart, every table, every calculation the crew could ever need. And they use it constantly. Before a voyage, during a voyage, they are always running the numbers, figuring out how every ton of cargo loaded or every drop of fuel burned is affecting that delicate balance. And that right there is the key takeaway. A ship's stability isn't something that's just set and forget. It's not a given. It's a delicate, dynamic balance, a living thing that has to be watched and managed every single second of every trip. So, next time you see one of those giants on the horizon, maybe you won't just see a ship. Maybe you'll see a masterclass in balance, a continuous, high-stakes ballet of physics, engineering, and human skill, all working together against these powerful, unseen forces to stay upright.